winter of my sophomore year of college, I was hardly feeling in the Christmas spirit. I had just broken up with my boyfriend of nearly 3 years after finding out he was cheating on me. I tried to be in a good mood when I spent Christmas with my family, but it was obvious that I was hurting. I could barely even fake a smile, and was relieved when the festivities were finally over and I got to go back to my college campus and sulk in my dorm room alone. A couple of days before New Year's Eve, there was a familiar pounding at my dorm room door. "Go away!" I yelled, trying to get myself to fall back asleep. The knocking only got louder. I groaned and eventually pulled myself out of bed and opened the door. My best friend Samantha was standing there. Her hair was freshly highlighted and she was wearing a new designer coat her parents had gotten her for Christmas. She made a face when she took in my appearance. "You look awful," she told me. I rolled my eyes as I plopped back down onto my bed. Samantha was going on and on about the best thing that I could do to get over my breakup was to start talking to a new guy. There was a big New Year's Eve party that was happening at a house off campus, and it was supposed to be pretty wild and crazy. A bunch of people Samantha and I were friends with were going to be there. The last thing I wanted to do was go to a party, but after lots of nagging from Samantha, I eventually agreed that I would stop by, at least for a little bit. On the evening of New Year's Eve, Samantha stopped by my apartment with a case full of makeup and beauty products. I did my best to sit still as she curled my hair and put product after product on my face. When she was finished, I put on a simple black dress and jacket as we headed out to get the Uber that would take us straight to the party. I was in a grouchy mood and didn't feel like going out. I was also seriously doubting Samantha's plan to get me a new man at the party. We pulled up to an old house about 10 minutes away from campus. It was being rented by a few senior guys whose parents had a lot of money. The house was very old but still beautiful in its own way. The party was already pretty crowded and people were spilling into the front yard. Samantha and I made our way into the house and through the crowd until we got to the kitchen where the drinks were. We made small talk with a few friends and sipped on our drinks for a while. Eventually, I had to go to the bathroom, so I slipped away without Samantha noticing. I found the downstairs bathroom pretty easily, but it was occupied and there was a line of people waiting for it. "There's another bathroom upstairs you can use if you want," one of the guys who lived at the house mentioned to me before going back to his game of beer pong. I thanked him and headed upstairs. There was nobody upstairs, and it was strangely quiet considering how loud it was downstairs with all the music and talking. It looked like whoever had owned the house originally had left a lot of their stuff behind, and the guys hadn't bothered to get rid of it. There were black and white photographs hanging on the wall of a family. They were taken a long time ago, and each of the people in the photographs stared at the camera with a serious expression, not one of them smiling. I shivered and turned away. There was something very creepy about the pictures. The first rooms I came across were the guys' bedrooms. I came to another door that I thought might lead to the bathroom, but it was locked. There was only one door left in the hallway, and it was at the very end. I opened it, and I saw that it led to another staircase. I figured it had to lead to the bathroom because it was the only door left. I made my way up the stairs, letting the door slam shut behind me. It was dark and dusty and smelled strange. When I reached the upper level and took a look around, I was surprised by what I saw. There were tons of boxed up Christmas decorations, old suitcases, and other old junk. I walked all the way around looking for a bathroom, but there was nothing but storage. It was just an attic. I sighed and made my way back down to the stairs. I would have to see if the other bathroom had opened up. I jiggled the doorknob that led out of the attic and was surprised to find it locked. I slammed it a few times, but it wouldn't budge. I called out for help a few times, but it was clear I wasn't going to have any luck. The music was way too loud on the main level for anyone to hear me. I reached into my pocket for my phone, but my heart sank when I realized it was empty, and I remembered I had left it with Samantha. I was trapped in this creepy attic with no idea how to get out. Based on how distracted Samantha had been when I had left, I was guessing it would be a while before she even realized I was gone. I was going to have to find another way out. I started walking around looking for something I could use to try to pick the lock on the door. I picked up an old sewing needle that looked like it could do the trick, when a voice from behind me made me jump.
Do you need some help?
I spun around and came face to face with a boy about my age. He had dark hair, blue eyes, and was wearing a button-down shirt and dress pants. He seemed oddly dressed up for the type of party we were at, but that was the least of my worries at that time. I was wondering about where the heck he came from. "How did you get here?" I asked him. He smiled at me. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I was using the bathroom. It's just over there," he said. He gestured towards a door that I had completely missed. It was partially blocked by an old cabinet. I shook my head in confusion. "Wow, that's exactly what I was looking for," I told the guy, laughing awkwardly. I excused myself and quickly went to the bathroom, still caught off guard by this strange boy. When I finished, I stepped out and the boy was still in the attic. He was sitting on the floor nearby, flipping through some old newspapers. I didn't catch your name," I called out to him. He smiled at me again and simply said, "Benjamin." I couldn't help but laugh. "But you go by Ben, right?" I asked. He just shook his head. "No, it's just Benjamin." Then there was something oddly familiar about the boy, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. I stared at him for a few moments before remembering that I still had a problem to solve. We were still stuck up here. "Oh, well, Benjamin, I think I have some bad news. The door is locked. I think we're trapped up here. Do you have your phone on you?" I asked him. Benjamin didn't seem to be the least bit bothered by the news that we were stuck in this dingy, freezing old attic. "No worries," he said, without looking up from his paper. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a silver, old-fashioned looking key. He tossed it to me and I caught it in the air. I had no idea where he had found this key, but at this point I wasn't even going to ask. I just wanted to get out. "You coming?" I called over my shoulder to Benjamin as I made my way to the door. "In a little bit. You go on ahead," he said. He didn't have to tell me twice. I unlocked the door and was relieved when it swung open. "Nice to meet you," I called out to Benjamin as I left, but there was no answer. I quickly walked down the hall, eager to rejoin the party after being in that creepy attic for so long. I was just about to head to the main level when one of the black and white photographs hanging on the wall grabbed my attention. It was a boy, about my age. He wore a button-down shirt and was sitting on the ground petting a dog. I felt my blood run cold as I realized I recognized the boy from the photograph. It was Benjamin, the same Benjamin that was in the attic with me. I did not doubt it. I took one long look at the door I had just come out of and then took off running down the hall and back down to the party. It was Samantha's voice that I heard first. "Hey, wait, where are you going? We've been looking all over for you," she called out to me. I quickly told her I didn't feel well and was going home. As soon as I got outside the house, I called an Uber to come pick me up. I was lucky that there was one waiting, only about 5 minutes away. I hopped in the car and didn't even look at my phone until I was back safe in my dorm room. I didn't bother trying to tell Samantha what happened. She would never believe me, and neither would anybody else, but there is one thing I know for sure. I met a ghost in the attic that day. During the week before Christmas of my freshman year of college, my grandparents decided to go out of town to visit my aunt who lives in Switzerland. It was the first time they would be visiting her in years. They had 2 dogs and a nice house that they didn't want to leave abandoned for the week, so they ended up offering to pay me to house sit for a few days. I was home from college and did not have much else going on, so I agreed to take the job. My grandparents' house was built in the 50s, but they had taken very good care of it. Besides a few plumbing problems and some peeling wallpaper, it looked nearly as good as it did when they first bought it. At least according to the old pictures I had seen. Because it was only a few days that they would need me to house sit for, I packed only a small bag. I had an uncle who would be taking over for me on the 4th day. My grandparents were generous enough to pay me $75 for each day I spent there. Other than feeding their dog and letting them out for a walk a few times a day, there wasn't much to do. I spent the day catching up on schoolwork and even watching Christmas movies. On the first night I spent there, I was a little on edge just because I had never spent the night alone there. I double-checked each door and window to make sure they were locked correctly. Once I was sure they all were, I went to bed. I was awoken in the middle of the night by the sounds of some sort of movement downstairs. At first, I thought I was still dreaming, but after a few moments, I realized it really did sound like footsteps moving around downstairs. I jumped out of my bed and cracked open my bedroom door as quietly as I could. The footsteps were loud, and it sounded like someone in high heels was walking on the wooden floor. I peeked down the stairs and saw in horror that someone had turned the kitchen light on. I had been sure to turn all the lights off before going to bed. Whoever was downstairs didn't seem to know that I was there because they weren't making much of an effort to be quiet. It sounded like only one set of footsteps, but I couldn't be sure. Aside from the footsteps, there weren't any other sounds, no drawers shutting or closing. It almost sounded like the person had been in the house before and knew where they were going. I was just about to call 911 when all of a sudden, the footsteps stopped and the light turned off. After several minutes of silence, I was mostly certain that the person had left, and I decided to go downstairs to investigate. I creeped down the stairs as quietly as I could. My heart was beating out of my chest. Everything looked exactly how I had left it before I went to bed. Each one of the doors was still securely locked, and no glass was broken. There were no signs that anyone else had broken in. I wondered if my grandparents had given anyone else a key to their home. That seemed like the only explanation. As I made my way into the kitchen, I was immediately hit with the smell of a woman's perfume. It was strong and smelled like roses. It was a nice smell, but not one I had ever smelled before. It smelled almost as if someone had just sprayed perfume in the room a moment ago. I was creeped out and confused. I was sure I had heard footsteps, but who could it have been? Suddenly, I remembered that my grandparents had security cameras on the outside of their house. They would have recorded anyone coming or going. I ran to my grandpa's study where his laptop was. I pulled up the security system and typed in the password that had been written down on a sticky note. Sure enough, the cameras were actively recording. I rewound the footage to see if anyone had come into the house, but there was no activity over the past 6 hours. I was shocked. Was I losing my mind? The rest of the night passed by slowly, and I was relieved when morning finally came. I begged my mom to come and stay with me. I couldn't spend another night in that house alone. When I explained what happened over the phone, she told me it was probably just my imagination and nothing to worry about, but she agreed to come over anyway. I was so relieved when she got to the house and I wasn't alone anymore. She followed me into the kitchen to make a pot of coffee. Suddenly, she stopped dead in her tracks, and a strange look came across her face. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, startled. "That smell," she said, looking confused. After a few moments, she sat down at the kitchen table and burst into tears. She said the perfume smelled exactly like the one her grandmother Mary had worn years ago. Mary had passed away in the same house exactly 15 years ago. It's safe to say, I didn't spend another night in that house. When I was a freshman in college, I decided to spend New Year's on my college campus. A couple of my friends and I had recently gotten some fake IDs, and we wanted to try them out at the bars. Looking back, I now know this wasn't the smartest idea, but I was young at the time and I just wanted to fit in with my friends. The bouncers weren't very strict there, and I was able to get into the first bar we went to without any problem. This was a completely new experience for me, and I didn't know what to expect. There were a lot of flashing lights and loud music. The bar was packed with people. My friends and I all ordered drinks and then went to dance our heart outs. I was already a few drinks in when I went back to order myself another one. I was waiting for my turn when a guy who looked to be a few years older than me introduced himself. "Hey, I'm Ryan. The next round's on me. What you drinking?" he asked. I wasn't about to turn down a free drink, so I told him that I'd like a Cosmo. He nodded and asked the bartender for 2 Cosmos. I thanked him, and we spent the next 15 minutes or so sipping on our drinks and making small talk about school. He was a senior and definitely was a much more experienced drinker than I was. After a while, I realized I had to go to the restroom, so I excused myself and left my drink with Ryan. While I was in the bathroom, I realized how drunk I was, and I told myself that I needed to find my friends and start making my way home. Ryan was still there where I had left him at the bar. I thanked him for the drink and told him I was going to have to be on my way. "Don't you want to finish the rest of your drink?" he asked me, pointing to my nearly empty cup. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, so I sat back down and took a few more sips. The next thing I remember was being half pulled and half carried along the dark, cold street. I had no idea where I was or who I was with. All I wanted was to sit down and rest for a bit. Every time I slowed down, I was roughly yanked forward. I glanced up and realized it was Ryan from the bar who was pulling me along. Even in my half-awake state, I knew something was wrong. "Wait, where are my friends?" I mumbled. "Don't worry about them. You're going to be spending the night with me tonight," Ryan answered. I tried to pull away from him, but his grip was too tight. "No, I don't want to. Let me go," I said, raising my voice. He clamped a hand over my mouth. "Allison, is that you?" I heard a familiar voice from a distance say. I turned my head and immediately recognized my English professor, Mr. Jacobs. Suddenly, Ryan let go of my arm and sprinted off into the night, quickly disappearing. I sat down on the curb to rest, and soon everything went black. I woke up in the hospital and was told that Ryan had roofied me. He was identified through a surveillance camera in the bar. If Mr. Jacobs hadn't been walking by right at that moment, I can't bring myself to think about what would have been done to me. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our newest video on Anna Horror. I got stuck in a water park ride overnight. It's guaranteed to send a shiver down your spine. Sleep tight.
My ancestors' journal. I found this journal among some things in my granddad's attic. As far as I can tell, it belonged to some old relative of ours, but I'm not sure what to make of it. Maybe one of you guys can give me some help here. Maybe this is some sort of fiction the guy wrote while bored. I can't imagine running a farm was that entertaining, but at the same time, I really don't know. Some of the books are legible, but here's what I can make out. June 12th. Another storm tonight. Real bad one, too. Think lightning touched down a few times in the pasture. I'm gonna have to go out tomorrow to make sure nothing's damaged. Today was good, though. Productive. I think Rose is going to have that calf soon. She's getting bigger by the day. Alva's talking about going to Sarah's grave again. I don't know if me or the boys will have time. She might have to walk there herself. And I wouldn't say it to her, but I miss Sarah too. Almost too much. It's better if I stay home. June 13th. Someone was out last night in the damn storm. Albert found him this morning. He let the cows out to graze and went out to check on the chickens before he heard a hubbubaloo coming from the pasture. He ran out there and found the poor fellow. It was obvious that he'd been out there all night. He was soaked to the bone, naked as the day he was born, and for a moment, I thought I had a dead man on my land. But when he started to murmur, I had Albert and Sven bring him inside while I finished up the chores. The man's still not awake. We dressed him and set him by the fire to warm him up. He's fevered, but Alva's a good girl and taking care of him. I'm surprised he's still alive after being out in the rain all night. Although I'm not holding my breath to see if he survives. The chills might take him before morning. June 15th. He finally woke up. He'd been out since we found him, mumbling deliriously and didn't have a clue where he was. But this morning, while Alva was sitting by him, he opened his eyes, sat up and asked for water. The man's got no memory of who he is or how he ended up in the pasture. I might end up making this month's trip to town earlier than planned. Start asking around. Someone ought to be missing him. And well, he sticks out. Handsome man, strong jaw, hair so blonde it's almost white, and tall. He's got head and shoulders on me in height. He has this thin scar on his back. Not a whipping scar. Looks like someone tried to skin him. It only recently healed too. In the meantime, I'll help him get healthy, see if he can handle farm work. June 24th. We've taken to calling our guest Stefan. He seems amused by the choice and likes it. So Stefan he is. Still no memory, but he's gotten strong enough to walk around and help keep the house neat. Alva already fancies him, practically lives to help him out and show him around. I can't say I dislike the man either. He's quiet, doesn't speak a harsh word. Since he's gotten so much better, I think I'll see about having him help me with the cows in the morning. June 26th. Cows don't like Stefan. I don't know why, but the minute Stefan set foot in the barn, they panic, start making a ruckus and kick at anyone who gets near them. I had to make him leave. I didn't want to panic Rose into losing her calf. The 2 goats we got don't mind him though. The male always seemed to be an ornery thing, especially when we got near his wife, but Stefan can enter the pen without getting butted. So that's his job now. Takes one more thing off me and the boys' plates. June 27th. Alva had a nightmare last night that Rose lost her calf and gave birth to it dead. When Alva got close, the calf exploded into maggots that crawled onto Rose and ate her alive. Hell of a dream. She was pretty shaken up about it. Stefan took over her chores for the day. Good man. Gonna make a run into town Monday. I'll bring Stefan with me, see if anyone can place him. It'll be a darn shame when he goes, though. The bruises on my backside are finally fading since I don't have that damn billy goat charging me every time I go in there. July 3rd. No one recognized Stefan. I'm disappointed, but also a little relieved. Means he can stay longer. We don't mind having an extra mouth to feed here, especially since he's willing to work. Sleeps in my room now, just so no tongues wag about him sleeping too close to Alva. I won't have anyone slandering my girl's name. Stefan don't mind the bedroll at least. He's asleep now. His hair is still white as the day he appeared. It looks like a halo spread around his head now. His face sometimes twists in his sleep, as if he doesn't like what he's seeing. Maybe he's seeing pieces of who he used to be, but I still can't put together who he is. Poor man. I can't imagine not knowing who you are. July 4th. I had a dream last night. Rose gave birth to her calf, dead like Alva's dream, but instead of turned into maggots, Stefan walked up to it. His mouth was turned into a grin so disturbing it made me break into cold sweats. He knelt down by the calf and pulled it up by the head before biting its throat. Worms crawled from the wound and Stefan chewed on the spoiled flesh. His teeth turned sharp as knives. He got up and walked to me. I couldn't run away. I couldn't move a muscle. Stefan kissed me. His breath tasted like bitter rot. I could feel the worms from the meat squirming into my mouth and down my throat. I still couldn't move, and I began to choke on Stefan's tongue and worms. When I woke up, I found myself chewing on my blanket. Stefan had woken up and was getting dressed. Time for chores. He asked me if I was all right. I lied and said that I had just had a strange dream. My mouth still tastes like worms. June 6th. No more nightmares. None I can remember, at least. But I think I'm walking about in my sleep. When I awake in the morning, my feet are covered in mud and scratches on my legs like I've been walking through thorns. Feels like I've walked for miles, too. My thighs ache. Stefan's been a good help, though. At night, he's been massaging my back, trying to soothe the pain. Talks about his own dreams and what little he remembers. I don't listen to all of it. The man has good hands, but Stefan apparently had brothers once upon a time. Lots of them. He wasn't a farmhand, but he can't say what he used to do. Not sure if he can or if he won't. Sven and Stefan had an argument. I don't know what about, but Sven seems to get the idea he's sweet on Alva. I don't know where the hell that idea turned up, but Sven's like his mother, stubborn once his mind latches on to an idea. If Stefan wanted to marry Alva, though, I'd give that marriage my blessing, if that's what both of them wanted. He'd take good care of her. July 7th. The calf was born dead, all right. Rose died too. Something must have gone wrong. The calf had gotten stuck, and that's what caused the bleeding. Albert found their bodies. The calf still hanging out of Rose's body halfway as it lay in a pool of blood. The stench is so bad, I think it'll stick in the walls forever. trying to salvage what we can by butchering the two of them and salting the meat to save. I'm starting to think Stefan used to be a butcher. He carves meat professionally. I might see if he ever wants to leave to get him started in town as that. I hate that I lost the cow, but it ain't Stefan's fault no matter what Sven thinks. I think Sven's been paying a little too much attention in church. Devils don't walk among men. The Son of the Lord made sure of that. They have no power over us. July 15th. I can't let my children know what happened this afternoon. They'd never look at me the same. Stefan and I were out repairing the fence when he asked if we could go for a walk, farther from the house, so we could be alone. The look in his eyes wasn't the kind of alone that I should have agreed to, but I did. Stefan and I sinned together under the apple tree. I loved Sarah, I did, but she never made me feel like Stefan did. It was bliss, like my wedding night all over again. I kissed his hands and praised his name, and I only feel guilty because of the risk of getting caught. It's our secret. Stefan will live here, just a man with no home and nowhere to go, and we'll keep making love like husband and wife, and no one has to know. July 21st. Sven and Stefan had another fight. At first I found it funny since Sven's still stuck on the idea that Stefan's wanting to marry Alva, but it turned into shouting and hot anger. Albert tried to get in between the two and trying to calm them down, but then Alva fainted, her skirt soaked in blood. I took her into a room and yelled for Sven to run to the doctor. I had to undress her, see if she was injured. That's where I saw it. A dead black kitten was curled between her thighs. As far as I can tell, she birthed it. I hid the cat's body by the time the doctor came, and he diagnosed it as one of those monthly things. I have to talk to Alva tomorrow when she's awake. July 22nd. Alva confessed to me witchcraft, but where she admits she learned it from chills me to the bone. Stefan gave her the tools to talk to the devil himself, to sell her soul to gain his power. I didn't believe her. Called her a liar, that she'll burn in hell for tarnishing a good man's name. She burst into tears and told me everything. Stefan told her she had a gift, a power that could be unlocked. She at first resisted the idea of calling on the devil, but he told her how much could be gained. I asked if he was a witch too. She told me he was not, but told me that he was no man either. I'm gonna have to talk to Stefan tomorrow. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I will. July 24th. It's storming again. I still haven't talked to Stefan. I've let him sleep in my bed and kiss my body, but I can't ask him why he turned my daughter to witchcraft. I'm afraid of his answer. Alva's strength has returned, and more so. It's doubled. I've seen more cats, black ones. I had to set down my journal. I thought it was hailing, but it's not. It's raining. Toads. Toads and blood. July 2nd. I asked what he was. What he was. My presence kill calves and turn God-loving girls into witches. He said, fallen from grace and that end until he's gone. Is going to kill. This page was stained with bloody water. I can barely read it. The next 5 entries are entirely illegible. August 7th. We buried Sven today. I've told the town there was an accident, that the cow had kicked him in the head, that he was killed instantly. I wish I could say it was instant. Stefan's missing. It's still raining toads at night. Alva's gone too. Left last night. Albert's still here. He's all I have left. God, have mercy on him, please. August 18th. Stefan came back last night. He says he wants to stay, but he knows I won't let him. We both know now his presence brings hatred and death, and although he might not have borne ill with the family who took him in, he could not stop his curse. I kissed him through the window before I told him if he didn't get off my property, I'd shoot him in the head. He laughed at that. We both know who'd win a fight. I'm so sorry, Sven. I should have listened to you. All my animals are dead, minus the damned billy goat. Sven is dead. My daughters ran into the forest to dance with the witches and marry the devil. All I have left in this world is Albert. And tomorrow we're packing up what little we have and getting out of here, so Stefan won't be able to find us. I don't know if I can turn Stefan away again. I'm not strong enough.